Welcome to the Lonestar Collective. I'm your host, Gramps, Chris Crisolia, and this week we are joined by our guest, Paul Trowe. Correct me if I said that wrong.
It's Trowe, but that's
Trowe.
cool. Yeah,
I knew I was going to say it wrong.
All good.
A good host would have asked that up front.
Appreciate
Paul has got an interesting story that touches home to a lot of what we deal with here in Texas with the fight that we're trying to legalize. I'm going to let you kind of introduce yourself, Paul, and tell us your background, and then tell us a little bit about your story and what happened to you.
You know, before I start, I'm 51, so maybe I should be called Gramps too. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Do you have any grandkids yet?
No.
I've got a couple of those, and I'm fixed to be 56. So you're close, if not already there.
Junior Gramps.
At any rate, go ahead and get into to a little bit about your background and how your story all started.
Sure. So I started getting headaches my first year in college in 1989, and they got worse over the years. They started out as just headaches that Aleve would take care of. I saw a chiropractor, I got it taken care of. But as the years progressed, they got worse and worse and worse. And when I was in California in 1995, I volunteered for San Francisco NORML, even though I was living not near San Francisco, but that was the closest chapter. We went around collecting signatures for the ballot to make marijuana medical in California. It was called Prop 215. It was the original proposition on the ballot. In California, they have these things called ballot-based initiatives, where if you get enough signatures, you can get something on the ballot. Sure. So it literally went door to door in Oakhurst, California, collecting signatures for the ballot. And I honestly forget the number off the top of my head, but we got about 3 times the amount of signatures needed for that ballot initiative. And it passed, I think it was like 79% yes. So the following year, medical marijuana in California went into existence. I got my medical marijuana prescription. Well, it's not called prescription. It's called a recommendation. And I used THC to control these crazy headaches. When I moved here in Austin in 2000, I kept going back and forth to California to see my medical marijuana doctor. And I even had to go to great lengths to go to DMV and get a new California ID that had my Texas address on it, just so I could go into the California dispensaries. So I had a California ID with my Texas address, and just to get into the dispensaries to get my pills. So fast forward to 2005, somebody ratted me out. I don't know who it was, but I was growing pot in my closet, and SWAT busted into my house. Somebody called Austin Crime Stoppers, said Paul Trowe and his gay roommate Lane Vance are growing marijuana and selling it to the neighborhood. And that couldn't be further from the truth. We weren't selling it to the neighbor. Oh, and they said we had shotguns, or we had guns rather. And I don't have any guns in the house. We weren't selling it. I was just growing it strictly for myself, so I didn't have to keep going back to California and getting the THC pills. So when SWAT came into the house, they came in. They must have thought I was some drug kingpin or something. They came in with all the machine guns, with the hoods and with the lights. They had a guy with a video camera there, and it was 6:00 in the morning. And at the time I was making video games, and I thought it was the FedEx guy banging on the door, because a lot of times I was getting cell phones from Nokia and from LG and Motorola. They would come in all the time because we had to adjust the video game on the cell phone for that screen size, because that's back in the day when we had those flip phones, if you recall. Yeah. So I heard the pounding, and I'm at the door to my bedroom with my boxers in one hand and my shirt in the other. And the SWAT is already upstairs, and they're screaming at me, "He's down on the ground, down on the ground." And I get down on the ground, his knee is in my back, and they cuff me, and they're filming the whole thing, and I'm naked. They're just like sitting there like you see on the show Cops or something like that. And they searched the whole house, and thank God I wasn't growing at the time, because if you're growing in the state of Texas, they can actually take your house. Yeah. So they found the high pressure sodium bulb, and they found the empty pots, and they found the book called The Deluxe Marijuana Grower's Guide, which is what I read, how to grow. And they found the pH up and the pH down, and they found the fertilizer. And they charged both my husband and I, husband at the time, I'm divorced now, with possession of a controlled substance, THC, over 4 grams, under 400, because they found my marijuana pills. I had 2 pills in there. But in Texas, they're allowed to weigh the container in which the drugs are kept. So that plastic bottle with the 2 pills weighed 4.9 grams. And the Texas statute is over 4 grams, under 400 grams, 10 years prison. So we were working on this $1 billion idea, which was to bring Lotto, Mega Millions, Powerball, and scratch-off tickets to smartphones. And smartphones had not come out yet. But, since we were partnered with Apple and Google and Microsoft and all these guys, we got, the prototypes of the iPhone and Android and, LG Android phone, all these different smartphones. So our pitch was to go from state to state, showing that we can do scratch off on the phone. So I believe it was my chief financial officer at the time who ratted me out because they timed the arrest at the same time I was supposed to be in Salt Lake City for a shareholder meeting to raise more money. Because I think they wanted to say that I'm an incompetent CEO, and he was trying to. So when they were all there and I didn't show up because I was in jail, in Travis County Jail with a $50,000 bail, my CFO says to the investor, "Oh, he's not here. Maybe we should call the jails." Well, first of all, if the CEO of a company doesn't show up to an investor meeting, that's not the first place you call. You call the hospital.
Yeah.
Sorry. Put my phone on. I thought I put my phone on silent. So anyway, long story short, we were both charged. My dad flew, instead of flying to Salt Lake City to the investor meeting, my dad flew down. He's like, "Son, I'm incredibly proud of you and what you've done. We're going to hire the best attorney we possibly can. But I can't afford $100,000 to bail you and Lane out of jail." And I said, "Don't worry about it, Dad. I'll figure out some way." And I didn't know how the system worked, but apparently you can pay 10% of the bail as a bond and get out, but you just don't get that money back. So we paid $10,000 in cash to a bond agency. I actually put on my credit card, but and then we were out, and then we were on pretrial. My dad and I went around Austin interviewing the best attorneys we could find, and the one that we really liked a lot had even before he met us, he pulled the police report and did some background. And he said, I used to be the federal prosecutor for Travis County for drugs, so I know this stuff really well. He said, what you did should not be a crime. So we're gonna fight it. We're gonna get interviews. We're gonna interview all the neighbors. He's like, you're gonna pay for it. He's like, but we're gonna interview every single person and we're gonna get all these character witnesses, and we're gonna show them, who they arrested and what you've done and how many people you employ in the state of Texas, and that you pay your taxes. And
I was gonna say, for just to clarify, which I think you breezed over it rather quickly. The medicine that you were arrested for was medicine you were prescribed in California, correct?
Correct.
So it was legally prescribed medicine. Yep. You legally purchased it. The only mistake you made was bringing it into Texas.
Correct. In all fairness, Chris, I knew what I was doing. I knew I was breaking the law. I knew I was breaking the law.
Sure.
But I didn't want to go on to pain medicine, because that was one of the options pain management doctors recommended. Mm-hmm. So they charged me, and 2 years. I mean, it took 2 years to resolve the case. The DA said that this isn't a guilty or innocence trial. We literally, broke into his house with a warrant, and we found THC. So we're not pleading out the case. We're ready to go to trial. We're ready to give him 10 years prison. This isn't a guilty or innocence trial. This is a punishment trial, and we're hoping for more jail time. And for 2 years, I was taking Valium and Xanax and just, shitting my pants. I was like, I'm not going to prison. If I have to go to Vietnam or China or Russia or Cuba, that's where we're going. But I'm not going to prison because this white boy is going to be raped in prison, and I'm not going to do well. So lawyers like, don't tell me that, So we were a week away from going to trial. We were in witness preparation. And the $25,000 that the lawyer cost initially to plea out the case, he wanted $125,000 to go to trial. Yeah. And in that time, I had sold my video game company. So, it's just white privilege, honestly, Chris. And and being an entrepreneur. If I was an employee of a regular company living paycheck to paycheck like most of the people out there,
no, you'd have been screwed.
I'd be screwed. I'd have to take a plea deal, and they weren't offering a plea deal. Their plea deal was 10 years prison.
Yeah.
So the thing is, white people and black people in Texas consume cannabis at the same rates, but in Texas prisons, it's 80% population of black people and 20% white people. And gee, I wonder why that is, because white people like me have the money to pay themselves out. We literally paid our way out of there. 1 week before trial, the DA got elected to go to a different county. So he was elected DA of instead of being assistant district attorney here in Travis County, he was elected to a different county. And we got a brand new kid out of college, and she offered 10 years probation, felony probation with a second-degree felony, and we took it. We didn't even try to negotiate. We just took it right away. So when I was starting this company, I sat down with Heather Fazio back in 2019, and I said, Heather, I really want to do, for my next company, I just sold my last one, it was another video game company. I said, for my next company, I really want to do a cannabis company. I'm thinking about moving to Oklahoma. And Heather said, don't move to Oklahoma, start here and start with hemp. And I said, yeah, but my whole thing is I want to get people high legally. And she's like, hemp gets you high. I was like, no, it doesn't. She's like, clearly you're ignorant and you don't know what you're talking about. So you need to go do your research.
Yeah.
So for 2 years between 2019 and 2020, half of 2020, because that's when COVID hit, I went to every single CBD show, every single marijuana trade show I can possibly find, attended all these webinars, visited countless farms, countless extraction facilities, kicked the tires of every single farmer I could meet in those 2 years. And then I opened the doors to Urban in February 2021, and I started with Delta 8 vape carts with cannabis-derived terpenes. Nobody was doing cannabis CDTs. Nobody was doing cannabis-derived terpenes at the time. And they're like, gee, your carts hit way better than everybody else's carts, even though they were in a clamshell. It was the cheapest packaging you could possibly find. But I started the company with my $10,000 on a credit card. And I was like, listen, I'm not going to invest a lot of money, because if this company doesn't float, I don't want my savings to go down the toilet. So I put it all on a credit card, and I literally went door to door, giving away samples. I'm like, just try it, just try it. Here you go, try it. It's better than everybody else's. Those 2 years, I did 2 trips to Shenzhen, meeting all these different battery manufacturers. And what I found was that when you create a disposable vape cartridge or a regular 510 thread, whatever, 1 gram or 2 gram, doesn't matter. Yeah. You have to make that cartridge, the pole, the hole, the size of the holes, the coil, all that specific to the viscosity of the oil that's in the cartridge to decrease your failure rate. And all carts on the market say less than 0.1% failure rate, and we have less than 0.01% failure rate for that reason. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna have to take a quick sponsor break for right quick. So when we get back, I want to get more into how you turned this into a company and what all you're doing with it. Tell us what your company name is and all that good stuff, and what all you're doing with it. So
awesome.
We're going to go to a quick sponsor break. And then when we come back, like I said, we're going to learn about Paul's company and what he's doing in the hemp market in Texas, legally getting people high, when we come back.
Howdy, Colt Power here. These days, many people are choosing to add CBD to their wellness routine. Why? Some like CBD for how it may help them with their focus. Others enjoy the way the plant compound may assist them with their sore muscles and relaxation. For me, CBD has been a game changer in keeping my old sports injuries managed so I can work out and be present for my family. If you've ever been curious about CBD, I invite you to check out our Texas-grown, Texas-made products at powerbiofarms.com. That's power, BIOPHARMS.com.
Thrive Apothecary offers an experience truly unique from anything else in Texas. A full-service cannabis solution that is doctor-owned and offers customers every level of cannabis legally available in Texas. From traditional CBD products to emerging hemp-derived THC edibles, smokables, and now medical cannabis. As a licensed medical cannabis provider, prospective patients from anywhere in Texas can book a sponsored online eligibility consultation to determine if they qualify for a medical marijuana prescription from the comfort of their own home. Plus, for Texas veterans, the first prescription appointment is donated by Thrive. Visit thrivetx.com for more information.
Welcome back to the Lonestar Collective podcast, the official podcast of the Texas Cannabis Collective, distributed on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and many more, to give Texans information regarding policy, industry, and culture. And now, back to this week's show.
Welcome back to the Lonestar Collective, the official podcast of the Texas Cannabis Collective. This week, I'm joined by Paul Trowe of Herban Bud. Welcome back, Paul.
Thanks, Chris.
I wanted to bring up the name of your company, Herban Bud, there, because we hadn't mentioned it. You kind of just rolled right into talking about how you started researching the hemp market and stuff like that. So tell us a little bit more about that, what you found out, and how you learned what Texans need to know about legal cannabis alternatives in Texas.
So those 2 years, 2019 and 2020, it was really eye-opening for me. I learned about HB 1325, which legalized hemp in Texas. I learned about the 2018 Farm Bill. I learned about the 2014 Farm Bill, where we had a pilot program. I had to make a decision whether I was going to go into the health and wellness market or the rec market. And because I come from a technology background, I made video games my whole life, for 35 years. I looked at the data, and I looked at the data from all of the different states that had medical and rec, what we call adult use marijuana. And the data clearly showed to me that adult use sold way better than medical. Even in the states that had both, they sold way more on the adult use. And even though I use THC for health and wellness, I saw in those 2 years, I saw everybody in the market going after health and wellness, everybody. And I said, man, nobody's out there going out there and saying they're going to get people high legally. So I wonder if I can do this. I wonder if I can even say this. Yeah. So I spoke to my defense attorney, Bruce Fox, from when I got arrested. And he's like, well, let's call in a couple of cannabis attorneys and see what they say. So we called Rod Kite in Colorado. We called Vicente Senberg. We called Lisa Pittman. We called, I forgot who else we called at the time. But they said, you're walking a fine line. You're walking a very fine line, and you're going to have a target on your head. But as long as you don't cross the line, you should be fine. And, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur since 2001. I'm used to risk. I don't want to go to prison, so I won't ever sell anything that's illegal, but I will walk up to that line and achieve our company's goals, because I don't want anything to ever happen to somebody else happen to me. I don't want anybody smuggling their drugs in from Colorado or Oklahoma or New Mexico, because, they can't get here what they could get there. So that's solely the mission.
That's like what we tell lawmakers in all the meetings that we've been having, with the Texas Cannabis Collective. We've had more than 25 meetings with different lawmakers' offices, got more scheduled for next week. And that's one of the points that we keep making. We're not interested in illegal activity. We're interested in stopping illegal activity is what we're interested in. That's why we want to change the laws. I mean, there's one law. I don't know if you're familiar with this one that's on the books, going through the process right now. Basically what they want to do, what they've proposed is setting up checkpoints at every road, every street coming into Texas from New Mexico. And I mean, not only is that not even feasible to maintain from a financial standpoint for law enforcement, but they say they're not going to stop every car, only the ones that they think might be, they might be doing something they shouldn't be. So in other words, they're going to stereotype people, which is what's wrong with the laws that are already on the books? Bless you.
Thank you.
You know, it's nuts what they want to do. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to interrupt you there.
But besides being a waste of taxpayer money.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the thing about it is, you know, with these legal states like New Mexico, and unfortunately, Oklahoma didn't pass theirs, although I understand why it didn't make it through. But a lot of these people that are going to be coming back, some of them intentional, a lot of them are going to be grandmas and grandpas going for that weekend trip to the casino, and they come back after having indulged in what's legal over there, and they forgot to get rid of everything. And then they get stopped because they're in a hurry to get home, and they get caught with something that's a felony in Texas. If it's like a vape cartridge or an edible or
vape cartridge felony. Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, and anything that's outside of plant material is a felony in Texas currently, which is ludicrous. That's a whole nother subject we could get into. But anyway, didn't mean to interrupt you there, but so go back more into the whole alternatives that we do have with hemp derived products.
So doing my research. Oh, by the way, hold on. Quick plug for Texas Cannabis right there. we just made new T-shirts. Doing that research in those 2 years, we found one company that was selling Delta 8 vape carts, and they were saying that it's similar effects to Delta 9. I said, "It's no way this is possible." So we bought some and we tested it ourselves. We're like, "Holy cow!" We're like, "This is real." So we sent it off to Sante Laboratories in Austin, and it tested hot. So we contacted the manufacturer. They're no longer in business. It was called Hempire Direct. And we said, "Hey, your vape carts are hot."
So it had Delta 9 in them.
Oh yeah, it had like 14% Delta 9 in it.
But it was supposed to be Delta 8.
I couldn't get that out of my house quick enough, let me tell you.
Yeah.
I started the company in like the bottom floor of my house, right? Because before you can afford office space. So
Sure.
I couldn't get that out of my house quick enough. I was like, get this the hell out of here, because I want to go to prison. So, but then, I started talking to the labs on that we met, and they said, no, we do sell the Delta 8 isolate or distillate rather, that doesn't have Delta 9 in it. And it's a conversion off of CBD isolate, which, makes it hemp derived and 100% legal. So I said, okay, send me a sample. So they sent me a sample of distillate, and I sent it off to Sante, and they're like, yep, no detect on Delta 9. I was like, okay, this is exactly what we're looking for. So I worked with one of our partnerships, Vantage Hemp out of Colorado, who fill our carts, to make Delta 8 with live terpenes, and that's how we started the company. And then it just moved. It just snowballed after that, because we got a very, very good reputation for only coming out with high quality products, because I am really, really anal about what I put my name on, because I have to for me as a professional, with a 35-year video game industry background, I have to stand behind everything we sell. And sure. I will not sell anything that has our name on it, that has my name on it, that I'm selling to stores or distros, that is funny or legit or anything like that. When Rod announced that the DEA answered his letter, I was like, first I was a little upset. I was like, you could have given us a little heads up before you published the thing on LinkedIn and caused a whole panic. We took everything back. We're like, listen, if you guys want to keep it on your store shelves, keep it on your store shelves, but we're not producing anymore and we're not selling anymore. So yeah, we need to play by the rules. You asked about the name Herban Bud. I used to sell weed in college, and we used to call it herb.
Sure.
And I live in a suburban, part of Austin, and the name Urban just kind of came up, and we sell bud. So
yeah, I kind of figured the connotation, but when I saw the name, I thought, oh, that's cool.
A lot of people say Herban, and I'm like,
No, it's urban, folks. Well, you can tell from somebody that's an old school stoner from your younger people by the difference in that pronunciation, because they didn't call it herb. It's
exactly,
it's always weed or smoke. Yeah. So they got all them newfangled names for them. I still call it herb myself.
Yes. I call it herb too.
Well, I've got to ask you because the whole marketplace with Delta 8 and the now what's become very big with the Delta 9, even hemp derived Delta 9, as long as it's within the 0.3% by dry weight, there's products all over the market now in edible form, all across Texas.
Yep.
I'm sure you've heard of Senate Bill 264.
I have.
Okay. What's your take on that?
I think we're gonna be surprised. I think Senator Moody's going to come to our rescue like he did 2 years ago.
Well, I don't know if Senator Moody's going to have.
I'm sorry, Representative Moody.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're correct in both those, but I don't think Moody is going to have the. I don't think he's going to be the one that's going to be on the House side making the call. I don't think it's going to be tied to his bill like it was in 2021.
Yeah, I spoke to Andrea Steele, who's a cannabis attorney, about a month ago. Maybe it was December of last year. And I said, what do you think about SB 264? And she said, honestly, Paul, she's like, half the people want it to move forward and half the people don't want it to move forward. She's like, there's a lot of lobbying on both sides. Even though they're technically a competitor, Lucas Gilkey of Hometown Hero is a huge advocate. He's doing like these weekly updates on YouTube, not on a podcast, just on their YouTube channel about the status and why SB 264 shouldn't move forward. Mm-hmm. The problem I have with all these brands on the market is that they're lying on the packaging. Yeah. I would like to see some type of regulation that says that you can't lie. I would like to see some type of regulation about the testing. I would like to see
so would we.
Yeah, about what labs you're authorized to use. I mean, Texas Department of Agriculture says these are the approved labs, but doesn't say you have to use these approved labs. I've talked to people that own brands that go lab shopping, and they'll literally send their sample to all these different labs until they get a passing COA because every single lab tests differently. I sent 2 products. I'm not going to disparage the lab.
Sure.
But I sent 2 products to this lab. One was a 510 vape cart, and one was a disposable, and they had the same formulation in it, but the 2 labs from them came out different. And
from the same lab.
From the same lab.
Yeah, that's great.
On the same chain of custody, which is the form that you fill out when you send your specimen to the lab. Mm-hmm. So I tell all my stores when I go in there, I tell my sales reps to do this now because of my back injury. I can't go to all these different stores and sell direct because I love doing that. I love connecting with the store owners. But I tell them, I said, hey, look, I said, I know for a fact that product on there is not what's in it. And they said, what do you mean? They said, well, they're selling, it says D9 plus THCO. I said, and it's not possible, I know from a laboratory standpoint, to get 0.3% Delta 9 in a vape cart every single time. I know it's impossible because we've tried. We've tried doing it consistently and sending it to the lab, and we've spent like thousands of dollars doing that because we want to be able to say it has D9, by weight, and we couldn't do it. So I scanned the QR code, and it had 75% Delta 8, 10% THCO, and I forgot a little bit of CBN, CBD. I forgot what else. And I said, okay, so it's billed as Delta. No, by the way, the Delta 9 was non-detect. And so I said, see, this is what they're saying on the packaging, and this is actually what's in here. Another company, I'm not going to say the brand because I don't want to disparage them, but I was in one of our distributors last week, and they bill their 2-gram disposable as a THCP disposable. And we have just come out with a THCP disposable. I'm sorry, it's actually an 11-hydroxy THC disposable with THCP in it. It has 10% THCP in it. It's the strongest vape I've ever made. And I go to the distro and I scan the QR code because it's a THCP 2-gram disposable. I said, I'm like, we're screwed. I'm like, I'm totally screwed because look, they're just billing it as a THCP disposable. Of course, they're going to buy this product. And I look at the QR code and it has 1% THCP and the rest is Delta 8. And I showed it to the owner of the distributor. I said, they're billing this as a 2-gram THCP disposable, but it's all Delta 8. And then I scanned our QR code. I just said, here, lab results don't lie. I have countless stories like that. Countless stories.
Yeah, I can imagine.
What are you gonna do? You can only make the best products you can. Stand by them.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest reasons why we advocate. When I go into lawmakers' offices, I mean, there's basically three things we tell them. We start off with saying, what our priorities are. We want to expand the medical program in Texas. We want to remove the cap. We want to add conditions. We want to make a review board where we don't have to wait every 2 years, to come back to the legislature to say what we want or what we need, because the research shows this condition is now a treatable condition and this one no longer is. So we need to take it away, whatever the case may be. Right. Our second priority, obviously, is penalty reduction and or decriminalization of some nature. And then we have that conversation because obviously with all the products that are legal on the market, what we're running into now, somebody buys these products, whether it be hemp-derived Delta-9, Delta-8, THCO, or any of the other products that you're talking about, they're only legal while they're in the package. Once they come out of the package, a police officer has no idea what that is. All he sees is what appears to be contraband.
I was actually arrested for that in 2019.
Yeah, I mean, it's happening like crazy,
Yeah, I have a funny story. Story.
Well, I know a guy that bought some Delta-9, 3% by dry weight. They were in the legal realm. Delta-9 THC gummies. And when he opened the package, you know how hard some of those packages are to open. When he opened it, a couple of them came flying out in his car. And of course, he didn't get them all. So later, about a week later, he got pulled over. Vehicle got searched and they found the gummy. Of course, they took it, they tested it, it tested positive for THC. So they charged him with a felony. He had no way to prove to him at that point that was not an illegal product because it was no longer in the package, right?
Are you talking about Dustin?
I don't know what his name was. I just know the story. Yeah,
my friend Dustin. That's the same exact thing happened to my friend Dustin.
Okay, well, it may be the same story. I've heard it through the grapevine. So it quite possibly could be the same story. Yeah. But that's just crazy. So obviously we support the decrim factor. And then the third thing is I ask them, I'll just tell them, we realize the majority of lawmakers in Texas might or might not really be ready for the full legalization conversation. But if I may, I'd like to just pose two simple questions. And of course, they always bite, right? And the first question is, are we really stopping anybody who wants to use cannabis in the state of Texas with any of these laws?
Good question.
And of course, some of them just stand there and give you the deer in the headlights look. And some of them will say, well, no, of course not, which is the obvious answer. And whichever they do, I can tell you what we are doing. Since over 90% of these small possession arrests, which is 97% of arrests for cannabis in the state of Texas, are people under the age of 25. And what we are doing is we're strapping those young people with something that's going to follow them for the rest of their life and basically screw them for the rest of their life over something that over 80% of the population does at least once. Yeah. And most of them more than once. And then the second question is, wouldn't it make more sense if we're not stopping anybody that we have a fully legal, regulated market where we know what's out there being sold to people, that people are ingesting and putting into their bodies in various ways, that at least has the safeguards in place to try to keep it out of the hands of our kids and others who may or may not need it, people with mental health issues, etc., and also creates a revenue stream that we can feed into programs for drug addiction, mental health, and other things that are in desperate need of help within this country and this state. Wouldn't that make more sense?
The problem is a lot of these guys are investors in the private prison system. I spoke to a friend.
Nail head.
Yeah, exactly. I spoke to a friend who had gone to prison for meth, and I don't use meth. I don't condone that. That's why my husband and I are not together anymore, actually. But he said that he was in prison for 2 years for possession. And he said that the Texas prisons don't have air conditioning. And because they pay the state of Texas pays so low, nobody in the U.S. will work here, so they have to import these people from Africa and the Middle East to work here for those wages, and those people just don't give a shit about them. He said he was treated like cattle for 2 years, and it really broke my heart. It really broke, 'cause that honestly, that could have been me.
Well, and the thing about it is it could have been with what you were charged with, but the thing about it that really irks me when people want to. I mean, I get that's the reason, because I mean, even Dan Patrick gets a lot of campaign finance from private prison industry. I mean, that's public knowledge. But it doesn't make any sense to me, because I mean, I get they're against it. I get that's why he's against it and some of these other lawmakers, but it doesn't make any sense, because the simple fact is what I said earlier. 97% of the arrests in Texas are for small possession, minor possession, a joint or less.
Yeah.
97%.
I was in jail with one of those kids. He got arrested for one joint.
But those things, 9 times out of 10, those plead out to a probationary level. They never make it to a state jail, so they never get.
But the
benefit from the state jail aspect.
The problem is when you're on probation, there's so many ways for them to violate you. I almost got violated for probation because I couldn't urinate on time. And, I'm pee shy, or what do they call it? Bladder shy or whatever. So I have to go in the stall sometimes if there's too many people, at the urinals or whatever. So, but when you're on probation, they literally stand there and watch you pee. And I was having problems, and I had problems every single time they made me do this. And they didn't drug test me regularly or anything. It was quite rare. But he was screaming. He's like, "Hurry up! I have a line." And I turned around to him and I said, "Listen," I said, "Do you think screaming at me is going to make the pee come out of my bladder any faster, or do you think that that's going to make it worse?" And then I got brought up to the probation supervisor's office, and they're like, "If you can't pee today, we're going to violate you." And I didn't know what to do. I was drinking so much water and my bladder was about to burst. And one of the cops, he was a Travis County officer, what do you call it? The county police or whatever, sheriff. He said, "Listen," he's like, "if you drink a Coke, it'll help you." He's like, something about the caffeine. So I paid for the $1.75 Coke out of the machine. And I drank it. And sure enough, I was able to pee. And then what I learned was that I had no problem peeing in front of people if I sat down. So I asked my probation officer, so, "Hey, can I sit down and pee?" And she's like, "No, you can't. We can't give you the permission to do that unless you have a doctor's note." So I went to my doctor, told him the whole story. He's like, "That is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'll write you a note, no problem." Went in there the next month. "Here's my note. I need to be able to sit down to pee because I have a urinary problem."
Well, there's a will, there's a way, right?
and then I showed up with Marinol. Have you heard of Marinol?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I went to a friend of mine and I said, "Listen," I said, "I still want to be able to use," by the way, this is after I had gotten addicted to opiates. When I had to stop smoking pot because I was on probation, they put me on OxyContin, 40 milligrams every 8 hours, oxycodone, 20 milligrams for what they call breakout pain, and Valium, 10 milligrams, and Flexerol, 10 milligrams, and sumatriptan, 100 milligrams. And I went from weighing what I weigh now, about 155, to 220 pounds. And I walked into my doctor's office and she said, "Just so you know, you're going to be dead in a year." She's like, "You're pre-diabetic. And with the zombie state that you're coming in here walking," she's like, "You'll be dead in a year." So I while I looked for alternative methods to cure my migraines, which was ayahuasca, and that's a different story, but I needed to get back on the THC. So I found that doctors prescribe Marinol for all these different conditions, anorexics, cancer patients, AIDS patients, to stimulate their appetite. But me being a nerd, coming from tech background, I did my research. I found out that any doctor can prescribe any drug for what's called off-label use. Mm-hmm. So if a doctor thinks that Marinol can cure my toe fungus, he's allowed to prescribe Marinol for my toe fungus. So I got his prescription for my Marinol, and I never read these things, but I opened it and read the patient information sheet that comes with these pills, and it said this product contains natural and synthetic THC. So I highlighted it, and I brought that into my probation meeting. I said, just so you know, from now on, I will be testing positive for THC because I've been prescribed this, for my migraine headaches. And she's like, oh, no problem. I said, what do you mean, no problem? She's like, no problem. She's like, and she looked at the bottle. It came from HEB Pharmacy. And I said, you do know that this is literally the same exact stuff that I was getting from California that I brought here. And she's like, yeah. She's like, but you got it legally here. That's what counts. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, this is what I'm dealing with here.
Yeah.
That's why I'm in this fight, Chris. I mean, it's really difficult to be an entrepreneur in the cannabis space. I've got landmines going off all around me all the time. Laws changing, fakes, people trying to pass off fake COAs to me, people trying to hustle me and send me, we're selling THCA flower now. I got 4 pounds of this horrible junk, and it was a bait and switch, sent to me. So, but I'm not stopping. As long as I possibly can, I will fight.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. Listen, we got to take another sponsor break right quick. Then we'll get back. Want to learn more about where people can find your company and check out all your products when we get back here in just a minute. And then, of course, anything else you want to add in terms of what we need to do in changing the laws here in Texas as well. Cool. So we'll get into that when we get back.
Thanks.
We're going to take another sponsor break right quick, and we'll be right back.
Howdy, Colt Power here. These days, many people are choosing to add CBD to their wellness routine. Why? Some like CBD for how it may help them with their focus. Others enjoy the way the plant compound may assist them with their sore muscles and relaxation. For me, CBD has been a game changer in keeping my old sports injuries managed so I can work out and be present for my family. If you've ever been curious about CBD, I invite you to check out our Texas-grown, Texas-made products at powerbiofarms.com. That's power, BIOPHARMS.com.
Thrive Apothecary offers an experience truly unique from anything else in Texas. A full-service cannabis solution that is doctor-owned and offers customers every level of cannabis legally available in Texas. From traditional CBD products to emerging hemp-derived THC edibles, smokables, and now medical cannabis. As a licensed medical cannabis provider, prospective patients from anywhere in Texas can book a sponsored online eligibility consultation to determine if they qualify for a medical marijuana prescription from the comfort of their own home. Plus, for Texas veterans, the first prescription appointment is donated by Thrive. Visit thrivetx.com for more information.
Welcome back to the Lonestar Collective podcast, the official podcast of the Texas Cannabis Collective, distributed on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and many more, to give Texans information regarding policy, industry, and culture. And now, back to this week's show.
Welcome back to the Lonestar Collective, the official podcast of Texas Cannabis Collective. This week, my guest is Paul Trowe of Herban Bud. Welcome back, Paul.
Thanks, Chris.
We were talking right before we went to the break about cannabis law in Texas is what I want to go to first. Because, we just had our recent policy lobby day at the Capitol with Texas Normal and Texas MJ Policy. And, we had a good turnout for what I call a post-pandemic turnout because, things always are slower getting back started from what they used to be. But also, I think we are fighting something here in Texas with a little disheartened of the advocacy world, where because of the baby steps that we always seem to have to take here in Texas. I just wanted to get your feeling on that and maybe hopefully get a little encouragement from you to our listeners on why it's so important not to get discouraged and to keep up the fight.
So I live in Travis County. So my state representative is Democrat and she's pro cannabis. And my senator is Republican and he's anti-cannabis. But it's important to know who they are and contact them. Even if you don't show up at the Capitol at either Jackson Heather really run this cannabis reform movement here in Texas. Yeah. Even if you don't go to one of their seminars or you don't go lobby at the Capitol, you got to call these people and you got to write them letters. You got to click on the emails from Normal. I'm on Normal's email list. So when it says, write your senator, I click it all the time. And they make it real easy. Yeah, exactly. So, you got to let these people know that there's a voice because, it's supposed to be representative democracy. That's what it's supposed to be. But when we look at the numbers of people who favor medical cannabis reform in Texas and the people who oppose it, we're in favor by 67% or something like that. I forgot what the number Heather spat out last time, but it's well over 51%. I know that
the latest poll. I just made a direct action that we're going to be doing next week at the Capitol on Wednesday, taken to every single senator and representative's office. But the latest poll that I've seen is the Hobby School of Business did a poll in January, and theirs says 82% are for expanding medical. 81% are. I don't want to lie to you. I can pull it up. I've got it right here.
It's overwhelmingly,
but it's 81% said something, but 67% are for full legalization. Yeah. Full legalization, and of course, 66% think it will be beneficial to the how they put it. Oh Lord, what is the word I'm looking for? Tax revenue for local and state government.
As long as they don't do to us what they did to California.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, because I walked into a California dispensary.
That's a whole different.
And I went in with a $200 budget. Because I was like, oh, I'm going to splurge $200. And I walked out spending like $400. I was like, what the fuck happened? Because at the register, my taxes essentially doubled. And I was looking at the receipt. I was like, are you for real with all these taxes? He's like, well, we have state tax, we have county tax, we have city tax, and we have marijuana tax.
Yeah. Like, what the fuck? Well, and that's what I keep telling everybody that I've talked to over the last 5 or 6 years. Keeping it with all those taxes like California and even states like Missouri and Illinois and New York have got crazy taxes too, right? All that does is perpetuate the black market. And that's all that does.
That's what the bud tender told me. He said for every dollar spent in our store, $5 are spent illegally. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what he said. Mm-hmm. He's like, so thanks for shopping with us.
That 81% figure was 81% of Texans support legislation that would make the penalty for possession of small amounts of marijuana a citation, similar to a traffic ticket. That's what that 81% was I was thinking of.
And when Heather told me I was ignorant and didn't know what I was talking about and I needed to do my research, people always chuckle when I say that story. I had brought some samples. I had gotten samples from I went to the very first trade show. It was August 2019. And I brought back a bunch of samples, and I'm a real lightweight. I'm the lightest weight person in the company. When I hit a vape, any vape, If I see smoke coming out, I know I took too much. Okay. So that's how much of a lightweight I am. So I know all my skydiver friends at Spaceland San Marcos were all huge stoners. So I brought a whole bunch of samples with me. I brought pre-rolls, I brought flour, I brought, tinctures, I brought topicals. So, and I wanted to see if they would get high because they're smoking all the time, every day, all the time. Yeah. They do dabs. So first of all, the test obviously was successful. They got high. And then on my way home, I was in Caldwell County and I got pulled over for going 4 miles over, and it was July. And I rolled the window down and he's like, I stopped you, this and that. And he's like, you have marijuana in this car, son? I said, no, sir. I said, I have hemp. And the reason why you can tell I have hemp is because it's sitting on the seat right under your nose right there. And he's like, oh, this isn't hemp, this is marijuana. I can smell the difference. I said, really? I said, see, I think this is where why I got arrested. I said, really? I said, you can tell the difference between hemp and marijuana because THC has no odor. Well, I said, what you're smelling are the terpenes. He said, get out of the car, please, son. I was like, no. I don't need to get out of the car. Here, you want to smell it? Here, just look at the lab results. And then he got me out and he put me in the handcuffs. And then I was that guy on the side of the road, in handcuffs. And the guy was just throwing stuff out of the car as he was searching. And then he arrested me for possession of a controlled substance, possession of marijuana, possession of paraphernalia. I had a lawyer for $1,500 because I knew everything was legal. Yeah. And she's like, we're going to demand they test everything. She's like, is it all hemp? I was like, yes, it's all hemp. Yes. So she's like, good. She's like, we're going to demand they test everything. And she said, Paul, remember that story you told me about 2005 and being arrested for the possession of controlled substance THC? I said, yeah. And she said, what was the name of that prosecutor? I said, Fred something. And she's like, I forgot what his last name was. And she goes, was it Fred blah, blah, blah? And I said, yeah, that's him. She's like, you're not going to believe who the DA of Caldwell County is. I said, oh, fuck. I said, is that the guy? Because he left my case in 2005 to become the DA of another county. I didn't know what county it was. And she said, yeah, she said, he's the DA of this county. I said, oh, no. I said, I am so screwed. I'm going to prison. And she's like, relax. She's like, I used to work for the Attorney General's office. I'll handle it for you. And then she got all the charges dropped because they didn't want to test everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny when they put the foot down and say you have to test it, and that's one thing that the hemp law did do was they basically it forced them into that where they have to test it when it is one or the other, which is why a lot of DAs are saying, I'm not even going to mess with it. At any rate, we've gone on and on here before we have to close out and end this thing here because I feel like we could probably talk forever. Go ahead and tell us where people can find your company and your products and all that good stuff.
So we're in a number of smoke shops and CBD stores all across the state. If you want to buy direct, that'll really help us out a lot. We are at herbanbud.com. So it's HERBANBUD.com. But I also to encourage you to go to your favorite smoke shop. And if they don't carry Herban Bud, say, hey, I'm a really big fan of Herban Bud. Can you please carry their products? And we took the phrasing off of the website. We used to have it saying, if you buy any product and you're not happy and it doesn't get you high, like we promise, we'll refund your money. And you'll be surprised. All these people started popping up. Hey, I never got high. I want my money back. So we had to take that off. But if you're really unhappy with your purchase, we'll always give you your money back.
Oh, awesome. That's a good policy to have.
Yeah, because you got to stand behind your products. If you don't, nobody else, why would anybody buy your products?
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for coming on and telling us your...
Can I give our Instagram real quick?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, cool. It's Herban, HERBAN_BUD. We were at Herban Bud Official, but Instagram just took us down at 2,500 followers. So, yeah, and that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, we don't even want to get into the Instagram thing.
I want to say thank you for having me on, Chris. I'm a huge fan of you guys. I love Austin. I love Jesse. I've known Jesse for the last couple of years. They're really two good souls, and I'm really glad to meet you on this podcast. And thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Well, it's an honor to hear stories like yours because they just reiterate the reasoning why Texas needs to catch up to the rest of the country.
Yeah.
Or almost the rest of the country. It's what's fast going to becoming the rest of the country.
Yeah.
Because
federal law change would help a lot.
Stories like yours of buying something legal in another state and then coming to Texas and getting in trouble for it are just becoming all the more frequent and unnecessary. It's just, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense at this point in time. Like I keep saying, with all the hemp derived products, the Delta 8, the THCO, and all that, like you said, now the THCa that's becoming so popular, the cat's out of the bag, folks. And last time I checked, the sky's not falling either. So what are we doing here, right?
I looked at the statistics in Colorado. Crime has actually gone down in Colorado since they legalized.
Yep.
I mean, I'm like I said, I'm huge on data. I just use the numbers.
Yeah, and it's not hard to look up those numbers either. That's the thing. So absolutely enjoyed your story, and thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure meeting you here as well. I'm sure we will see each other around somewhere at some of these events in the Austin area coming up in the future.
If our backs will allow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's going to be it for this week, folks. We want to thank Paul for coming in and telling us his story. And like I said, check out Herban Bud. If you can't find their products in the store, then you can buy them direct, as he said, at their website at herbanbud.com. And that's going to be it for this week, folks. And we hope you enjoyed the show, and we hope you come back next week.